Well, hey, folks, welcome to another episode here of What's Next Beyond Service. Today's episode is number 16, and it's entitled Passionate Patriot. And you're going to see why here in a few minutes. So today, our guest is Justin C. Pearson, and he is just an incredible guy. He's doing so much in the veteran space. He served in the Army for 20 years, had a fantastic career. Now he's actually in the veteran space, in the nonprofit, focused on veterans and active military community. And he's also an entrepreneur, founder and CEO of Proper Patriot. Now, we're going to dive deep into all of those things. But first, let's do this. I want to welcome Justin aboard to the show. Justin, I am so glad you're here, and thanks for your time today.
Hey, thank you so much, Scott. It really, really means the world to me to be able to come onto your platform and, share a story and help hopefully provide, resources and solutions to those, that may be tuning in. And much appreciation goes out to you, Sarah, for the platform that you've built, and this drive, the passion of serving our military community is really second to none. And it means the world to me to see individuals such as yourself out there creating this opportunity, and furthermore, being able to continue this story. So thank you so much.
Yeah, Sarah is incredible. And thank you for saying just that. So I didn't know Sarah was going to actually be here today, because this is a special edition, Friday special edition of our program. And, things fortunately worked out as we were chatting pre-show here. Sarah told us that she had a schedule change, so she showed up. So now, like you said, now it's game on. We gotta perform well.
I'm all nervous. I got my moonshine here.
Yeah, I've got my coffee, which I always have. Sarah knows that. But again, Sarah, thank you for being aboard today as well. So, okay, well, look, let's just dive right into this. So, as I said a couple of seconds ago, you served for 20 years in the Army. You had a great career. What are some of the key aspects, or entertaining stories, or whatever that is, that you want to share with us about your time in service?
That is such a loaded question, Scott. We should be out at the gun range, right? Getting ready to zero in our weapons with a question like that, man. 20 years serving in the military, it was just an awesome ride. Yes, at times there were roller coasters, but furthermore, you look back and you look at the camaraderie, the teamwork, the discipline, right? And ultimately the adventure. And I'll come back to adventure here in a little bit. But those key things that happened throughout my military career, it just created that, hey, I'll do 3 years, I'll do 4 years, I'll do 5 more years, and then ultimately I end up serving 20 years. I think once I surpassed the 10-year mark, I believed that, hey, I was staying in for 30 years. And then, I kind of hit that brick wall that everyone says you will hit one day, when it's like, it's time, we're done, we're going to hang up the uniform. And that's what happened literally right before I was supposed to go to the Sergeant Major's Academy, which is the highest enlisted rank, the E9 school for individuals in the Army that, were going on to lead large masses of soldiers. And it just happened to be, hey, it's time for me to get out. But, I grew up in Montana. So, seeing Michael Partner there, second chance, cowboy hat, and just living that lifestyle, probably deep in that ranching community, I really can reflect and look back, when I was growing up in Big Sky Country out on a ranch, 120 miles south of Big Sandy, Montana, there wasn't much out there. I think at that time, our closest neighbor was some 20 miles away, so like, what was exciting then is much different than what it is now. I mean, we were living dangerous. We had a three-wheeler, the three-wheeler of death,
That's right.
The magical color was, that red three-wheeler. And I remember times, growing up, taking the three-wheeler off a jump to land in a pond, and that was our days. And growing up,
and your parents probably didn't have any clue you were doing all that, right?
Well, they did, and they were laughing.
All right.
Oh yeah. So growing up out on a ranch, and at that point in time, that young, as I was a fresh, ninth grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, I had lost my dad when I was really young. So it was just my mom,
Oh, wow.
me, my brother, and my sister, and we were kind of transplanted from Oregon to Montana because her family, 7 brothers, 6 sisters, out on a ranch, thousands of acres, and it was just something totally new to us. So being in that environment, that manual labor, that getting up at 3:45 to do chores, having dinner late at night, 8, 9 o'clock after all of the nightly chores were done, I was like, wow, if this is my life, well, I need something more adventurous. I want to be the individual that's signing up, doing something for my country. And then lo and behold, I joined the Army in 97, joined as an infantryman, wanted to jump out of planes, do something wild, do something crazy, push myself to the limits more so than I've ever done before. Because, growing up through high school, how much are you really pushing yourself? Especially like in Montana at that point in time, it wasn't about athletics or anything, like that. It was like, hey, can you, tip some cows or ride a bull? Or totally. Or can you go hiking in the mountains to go, hunting down some elk? So
Right.
I was blessed, to have the opportunity to join the service. I wasn't the smartest, crayon in the box. It took me a couple times to pass the ASVAB, and it was like literally bad luck. I remember I took the ASVAB the first time, and I scored 29. That's not 29%, but that's like. You have to have a minimum score of 31 on the ASVAB to be able to at least qualify. And the first time I took it, I really didn't try. So then when I tried, then I scored a 52, and they're like, well, you scored more than 20 points higher. You can't take that test, right? And then I took the test again, and there's like 30-day waits in between each time you take it. And then like the third time I took it, I scored a 30. And I'm like, how did that happen? Then I took it again, and I think I scored like a 58. And I'm finally, after taking it like 5 times, they were finally like, okay, you're good. We're going to allow you with an entry score of 48, and I'm like, I'd done a lot of studying and whatnot. So I had the opportunity to join as an infantryman, jump out of planes, and start my career, as a soldier in the Army. So it's been exciting, and it was exciting.
No, absolutely. That's a great story. Montana is God's country. All those, that part of the world is just beautiful. And a lot of people fall in love with what they see, and then they move there, and then it takes one winter to convince them that, oh my God, this is real.
Like, negative 60, 100 mile an hour winds across the prairie.
Yeah, that's cool. Things are so different for kids nowadays. Probably it's kind of a generalized statement, but I think it's so true. Technology is certainly an enabler for that. But I just, as a kid myself, my dad passed away when I was in high school. So I guess, we kind of, I'm not sure how old you were, but we kind of shared that, I guess. But my mom worked, she had no choice. And so she was gone a lot. And somehow I survived, right? I grew up in Virginia, and loved the state. It was a great place to live and had a lot of good friends there. But at some point, I decided that the service was what I would do too, and so that absolutely resonates as somebody that served in the military too. So, well,
and looking at my situation growing up, I'm trying to share nuggets like I've never shared before in any discussions. Growing up in Portland, Oregon, and living in a trailer house, not having much money, living off of food stamps. My mom at that time, a widow with 3 kids, no job herself. We're literally living, off of food stamps, and us as young children, going out collecting pop cans so you can turn them in for 3 or 5 cents at that point in time. Or, I remember collecting pop cans to the point where I was able to buy like a $50 lawnmower, right? And then I was able to take the lawnmower out and going house to house saying, hey, I'll mow your yard for $5 or $10, right? Whatever you choose, either or, and then just doing that. weekend after weekend, and, being able to help raise that money for the family from a, we need school clothes perspective, so when I thought about like finally to the point of, unfortunately, when I was like 10 or 11, my father died. And then my family from Montana, my mom's family, they came and they got us. So then I got to see like the manual labor part of it, right? The having chores that just never ended, and doing things like I had never experienced in my life. So early on, understanding the value of $1, I remember thinking growing up through my early high school years and reflecting back, like the odd jobs, to make a couple bucks was, hey, go out to the rock quarry that's 17 miles away, fill up the back of the dually, with, fist-size rocks, and every rock that you put in the back of the dually, when you bring it here to get inspected, you're going to get literally a penny a rock, right? So picking thousands of rocks over the period of a summer to make $300, and then finally it was, okay, I'm joining the service, let's get out and make something happen and do something.
You catch a break and go to the service there.
Yeah. And then at that point in time, I didn't really realize, I didn't know what my father did, because I hadn't like jumped down into that history of, hey, I got to find pictures of him, or what did his father do? But it just happened to be along that way early on in my military career, finding out that, hey, my father did serve, he had an infantry cord, he had a combat infantryman's badge, he had a Bronze Star, and the same thing with my grandfather. It was just, and then when I looked after 20 years of my career, because they just served one term each, after 20 years, I'm reflecting back and looking like, wow, we all accomplished, the same things in our career, so it's just pretty wild to look at it from that perspective and not realize that, and see those pictures like from 40, 50, 60 years ago that were, Polaroid Kodak, little snapshots of them like saluting. And I'm like, that kind of looks like me. Wow, that's wild.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. My dad served, his dad didn't, but my dad did. My dad was in the Air Force. He was Marine Reserves, then somehow got into the Air Force, but, he did 20 years. My stepdad did 24 years in the Navy. My brother was in the Army. He served about 15 years combined with Guard and Reserve. So, I come from a background. In fact, when you look at my history, it goes back, and a lot of folks were in the military. And, something you said about being a kid and, whether you would have taken the road that you ultimately took is hard to know, right? Because of circumstances that happen in your life. I too was working at a young age for, similar reasons. My folks split up when I was in 5th grade. So, it was my brother, me, and my mom. And she had never had a job. So she had to go out and get a job. And so it was minimum wage, right? So we kind of had it tough too. So I was getting up early doing paper routes. I was doing the same thing.
Paper route.
Same thing as you, cutting grass, for like $5 for this huge lawn. But, hey, that was, $5 was good money back then. But then, I've always had a job. So I think Sarah or somebody had texted in as you were talking about, how when you're younger, these things define you and they give you strength and they set you on a path. And that's absolutely what's happened with you, right? You can see that, you're still on fire, all that experience, all that your desire to get out and do and to build, took you through your career, and it's obviously probably fueling a bit of what you're doing now. And so hearing you say that is tremendous, getting that backstory, and to know that your family served and that you got to know a bit about who your dad was and his dad. Stuff like that is so meaningful. It's nice to know your roots, because not everybody does. So, hey, real quick, if there are folks that are listening in, thank you so much for being here. That's, I love that. If you can mute your mic during the interview process, That's fantastic. And then at the very end, time permitting, we'll go to a Q&A, and then it's time to turn your mics on and we'll go to it. So, all right. So hey, Justin, so career-wise, any crowning accomplishments or any, one or two items that you want to share with us about that time?
Oh, wow. Yeah,
I know it's hard to talk about yourself, but
crowning accomplishments. To provide the necessary leadership to soldiers and other service members throughout the various branches, right? When I look back and reflect on many occasions, that's the really most powerful thing that just really moves me today, because I have individuals that now have been in 8 years, 10 years, 12 years that are getting promoted, and they're saying, I'm still following those three principles, Justin, or, I just, really soaked in the leadership that you provided in that one-on-one mentorship that has guided my whole life to this day. And seeing individuals now, reaching the ranks that I impacted, reaching the highest ranks, within the military, it's just real humbling. So I mean, that's something that still impacts me today. On the other side, the exact opposite end of the spectrum, being able to be the leader that you needed to be in the time where shit hit the fan, and you were able to bring people home. And that's a very touchy subject, and that's obviously a subject that people kind of steer away from. You don't really hear that type of discussion, especially when you're in different various corporate situations. So I tend to just hold that in and just look at it from the perspective of I was able to be the leader that God granted me to be, that assisted me to make the right decisions to bring people home, and ultimately gives me the right foundation today that allows me to be who I am and who has shaped who I am, so I can continue to serve others. And that's really, that's something that's like, part of my heart and my passion and my soul, going through the military. But I think furthermore, over the period of the last year, allowing God to come into my life has helped me become, even much better of a person than I ever thought I could be. So I just continue to walk that lighted path and serve others and help where I can. So thanks, Scott.
No, hey, amen, brother. That's a couple things here. One, humility. You hit right on that. Humility is important, and I can see that in you, and that's a fantastic answer. And then the other thing is the proof is in the pudding, right? When you see the results of your labor, when there are folks that you serve with that are still wanting to connect with you, when you see their progress and know that, you did your level best to impact them in a positive way, and you see the things that they're doing. And then the last thing you said about God coming into your life, we never know what the plan is, right? We never know. And sometimes we're confused, and sometimes we were even frustrated about, hey, what the heck's going on? But yeah, God is there. He's got a plan.
Amen.
And it's amazing, once you start to see those things happening. So yeah, absolutely. Well, let's do this, Justin. Let's transition.
As we always do.
And let's talk about your transition. Now, everyone who leaves the military, whether it's, you do one tour or 30 years, we all have to leave. You had said that earlier. So in thinking about that, everyone has a story. It's a very personal story because it's unique to you. Some folks have incredibly successful transition stories. Others have, an average story, and that's fine. But others have really hard, tough, slogs to talk about. So, you've got your story, and that's part of why I'm doing this. I want folks to see examples of people who have transitioned. You are doing very well now, and that's the other reason. It's great to get folks that have transitioned that are doing good post-military service. So let's talk about your transition. Now, you retired after 20 years in 2017. So when you looking through, were you ready to transition? That's kind of the first question I want to ask you, because that's an important question.
You're,
There's a lot of planning.
You're never ready.
Right. There's planning that has to be done. Sometimes you didn't know you'd be leaving and you have a condensed time. A lot of things happen. So what can you tell me?
I will start there, but I always love to just, toss it up a little bit too. For those of you that are watching, if you have some questions about like maybe aspects of my transitioning, drop it in the chat below, and then I will answer those questions as we're continuing through this dialogue. So please, drop those in the comment box. But Scott, by no means was I ready. You've experienced this too. Many of you that are on the line. You grow up in this environment that is so separate, right, from quote unquote corporate America, right? Or transition, or understanding resumes, or networking, marketing, branding, or how companies work, especially those that have served 20 years, 30 years, right? And really that whole networking and marketing, this digital era, really came to life in the mid 2000s, right? So now we're a decade plus past it, right? And we're looking back, and you think about like when I grew up, my first job was at Wendy's, right? And it was literally like, hey, you want to be a cashier? You look like you're trustworthy. Shake my hand, right? And boom, it was like that. Same thing when I went from that job to like stocking shelves and working the night. The night crew at the grocery store, same thing. I'd never experienced this make a resume for 20 years, or you got to build a network. I thought the network was like those that you've saved in your Outlook, contact email list that you're like, hey man, what's up? What's going on this weekend? Or building this digital brand. For the first half of my career, I wasn't really on social media whatsoever. And then the last half I was, just from like a talent acquisition type of perspective in recruiting. Also, I was there for my teammates that were online, where we were sharing the success that we were creating from within the communities that we were serving in, right? So when I go back to the transition piece, like, were you ready? No, I had no clue. However, I was still in the mindset of, oh, Justin knows everything. Oh, he's a subject matter expert. He answers, he writes the regulations. Oh, he advises the commander, this, that, and the other. So when you've been in that environment, and you know this from your experience serving, it's very hard to jump in a world that you just totally don't know. So, I'm trying to go through my own decision-making process on something I've never experienced, and I'm still falling flat on my face. That's wow. Just the truth of it. That is literally the truth absolutely. Of it, is time and time again, just falling, and you're just you barely have enough energy to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and say, you know what, I still got to get up 2 or 3 hours earlier in the morning. I got to stay up 2 hours later. I got to have just one more phone call with great individuals such as yourself that are on this line. So much to where, it becomes like you're living and you're breathing and you're dreaming about the conversations that you're having. And still you haven't been through this process. I hadn't. So then I'm wondering, am I literally going crazy? I have no clue. And, when you have the mindset as an infantry guy of, if the boss says, hey, you're running 12 miles today, guess what? You're running 12 miles, right? If you've got an inspection, you're doing the inspection. So I'm thinking, yeah, okay, I need to transition. Sure, no problem. Transition can't be any harder than road marching from Fort Drum, New York, down to Fort Irwin, California, right? If I can do that, I can transition. So my transition, at that time in 2016, when I was transitioning, there wasn't many resources. There wasn't advocates like this. There was not podcasts, right, that were happening on LinkedIn. That has all evolved over the period of the last 5 years, right? Which is amazing, because now there's ample resources, almost too many resources, because people can get confused as to where you're going. So at that point in time, I was confused. I'm thinking VSO, what does that even stand for, right? There's 55,000 DSOs. I'm confused. And then you have the people, I'm not going to name the names of the people, right? But you have people that are like, hey, buy this service from me, buy that service from me. You know, for $9.99, you can get this, you know, oh, you want your resume done? You buy this package for $1,500. And so you have so many people, because at that point in time, it's a new form or way that individuals can create, you know, revenue for them. So it's like you're being hit nonstop. And I'm, you know, at that point in time, I'm in Texas, right? And I'm just like, I am totally lost. And, you know, I just said, I was that guy, I'll admit, like with no clue, with a ton of heart, throwing spaghetti against the wall, 882 resumes, applications submitted, right?
Wow.
And yeah, for the longest time, I used the same resume. Yeah, I may change like 3 or 4 words, truth. But that was it. It was just keep them going. Just throw it against the wall, right? Like you're out at the range with your machine gun and, you know, you're getting after it. You know, so that was my perspective at that point in time. And I was like, if I can submit 882, I'm eventually going to get, you know, people that want to talk to me, or get a whole lot of, you know, denied, you know, you're not.
Yeah, it's a war of attrition, right?
Which I did. But that at that point in time, that fueled me, man. That fired me up. Like it lit like a stove inside of me, where I'm like, yes, give me more. I want more disapprovals of my candidacy. You know, I'm unstoppable at this point in time. Yeah, I'm a little bit all over the place, but hey, it is what it is. And so when I go back, I'm like, okay, 882 resumes submitted. I think I may have had maybe, I don't know, we'll say 50, like people that were honestly evaluating my skill sets for a position. I mean, you know, you'll talk to a lot of people, and some people are just trying to figure out how they want to help you. But, you know, there was a small amount where it was like, hey, we're trying to interview you for a job. And at that point in time, I wasn't educated enough to know, hey, do the research to understand what type of jobs that these individuals have at what type of companies, what is the culture, values, and principles of that company? How do I align my skill sets, my talents, my abilities to specifically focus on the actual position description that was approved? What are the needs of that organization? Have I networked within that organization? And no, I'm an infantry guy. I'm a jack of all trades. I'm this, that, and the other. And I was saying everything that they didn't want to hear. And they're like, we love your passion, but we don't understand what you can do.
Right. Well, Justin, everything you just said, that last sentence there is so key, you know, because you don't know what you don't know. And those things that you rattled off there are exactly what they're looking for, right? They want to know that, hey, did this person spend any time even researching what we do, or did they just come across our, you know, ad for, you know, we need to hire somebody in this position? But, you know, yeah, those are all, again, if you've never interviewed, if you've never written a resume, these are all things that you just don't understand. And to that point, you talked about how things are different now. You know, we have the ability to, let's say, jump on LinkedIn. When did you start leveraging LinkedIn? And when did you think that you became proficient and was able to have that tool? Was that during your transition? Or, you know, when did you start, in your mind, start using that effectively? And what were you doing?
So I used it, you know, since June of 2016. At that point in time, like when you went to post, it was just a text post. Maybe in July of 2016, you were able to upload a picture, right? So I was, again, that first veteran that was like, oh, pictures? Too easy. I got tons of those. I'm going to share war stories. I'm going to do this, that, and the other, right? And I was holding the torch high, like, you know, yeah, this is me on a run. I can lead teams. Okay, right? But then I'll flash forward 6 months. In December of 2016, that's when they allowed URLs to be posted onto LinkedIn, right? So if you go to my YouTube channel, I'm not positive if it's listed, right? But what I will do, as we're talking here, I'm going to do something special. I am going to show you the And I'm going to drop the link in the comments to the YouTube video so you can watch
Cool.
the YouTube video. This was my transitioning YouTube video in 2016 that I went and had professionally done. Okay. And I was like, you know what? I can just get a YouTube video done, or get a video done, spend, $300, $400 for a video. And then I can share that link in a message on LinkedIn or on whatever other platform to everyone that I'm, interacting with, so they can learn a little bit more about Justin. Right. And I'm going to share that. You're going to get a chuckle out of that. I'm sure you will. I can't wait. That's exciting for me. Give me a quick second here. Yeah, that's not it. Hold on.
Yeah. So while you're doing that, you
There
were
you go. I
talking.
dropped the chat in.
You got to
Go
post
ahead.
it up there. Cool.
Yeah, I dropped the link in the chat so you can see. So I was like, okay, I'm going to use this. And I was the guy, like, from the LinkedIn perspective, send out a connection request. I'm sending out 100 a day. It's happening, right? it was like no holds bar, right? So
Right.
early on, and all of the algorithms were much different back then. They weren't as sophisticated as they are now, especially from the 100 variations of how social media platforms will grade and critique you to give you influencer scores. So, I went up really quick, up to 30,000 followers. Right. And then once I found my first job, I was like, well, hold on, I'm going to cut this down to 15,000. Right. And then only focus on, building a meaningful network from that point forward. So over the period of the last 5 years, every month I'll go through and I delete, several hundred every month, especially if there's locations where I'm like, I don't want to be associated to this, that, or the other, or you see some people that are posting things that you don't want to be a part of, then I just, kind of unconnect. But, I'll tell you from a true, mastering LinkedIn perspective, it was about 2 years ago where I was like, hey, I get it, especially from my first job that I had when I left the military, from that to that next job to this job. Between those transitions, they were very, very simple because you built a brand, you understand how to use LinkedIn. But it took me 3 years of kind of failing and flopping in the wind, right, in order to fully understand how to use LinkedIn within the scopes that you're trying to use it, because there's so many different contexts of
Right.
how you can leverage social media platform. It may be solely only to work with executives like Sarah, right? Or it may be I need to work specifically with great professionals such as yourself. Or maybe I'm trying to find cool friends that wear cowboy hats and drink Rip It, right? And I love me some Rip It, right? Like Mike, right? I mean, that's just the truth behind it all. Exactly, right? So you just got to think about it what are you trying to accomplish in that journey? And there are questions that have came in, like what books helped me? I'll tell you one great book that helped me was What Color Is Your Parachute? That helped me understand what corporate America or people really want to hear.
That's kind of a classic one there.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And then, The Transition Mission by Herb, that helped a lot too. There are many great books
Brother
out
Herb.
there. Yeah, many great books out there that can help get you oriented in, true north on your compass, man. And yes, Mary, there are services. I am not the person that will be like, no, just use free services, I'm just not, there are certain things that you have to invest in yourself. Right. And so investing is, time spent, right? If we're spending time together, you're making your time capital type of investment with someone. Or if it's you're opening up your wallet to pay for a service, then you're opening up a wallet. You got to determine where you're trying to go in life and how long you want to get there. Yeah, you can do, if we're talking about profile pictures, you can do, a snapshot, from your mobile device like a selfie type of picture. I mean, if you really want, or you can have a friend do it, or you can go to J.C. Penney's, right, to get your headshot done, or you can go to a high-end, photographer that does exemplary work like John Meadows here in DC, and there's many all over the nation that do that type of headshot. That's a headshot that you can use online, like, in magazines. At any point in time, you can show the video, show the headshot, and people are gonna be like, wow, this dude's a real deal. Let's hear him. And that's ultimately what these things are doing. You're paying for services, right? To be able to be heard, right? If you're paying for a resume service, all that resume is going to get you is like, 2 or 3 or 4 words, like, let's talk about it. It's that easy. Like, you may spend $300, $400, $500 on a resume, right? But you're getting 3 words when that recruiter sees it and is like, wow, okay, yep, let's talk about it. It's that easy. So was it worth those 3 words? Same thing with like a headshot. If someone jumps over onto LinkedIn or your digital profile and like just has a quick look at you, are they immediately looking like, this is the type of person I need to talk to? Let's talk about it. So services of that capacity, same thing as like developing content. Early on, I was never the person that was like this expert at writing things. I am definitely not that. However, there are great writers like Michael Quinn or like Herb or yourself, Scott, that really can put together a capturing, emotional message. That's awesome. However, that's not me. So, you as an individual or me as an individual could go out and search for a content writer, someone that has those skills and abilities, may charge you $100, $200, $300, $400 a month, depending on your needs, right? That either A, is going to help train and educate you, or B, will sit down, do interviews with you, develop the content for you, right? So that can help you in your posting abilities, and hopefully they're inching you forward. I mean, there's people who, have full-fledged content teams that are posting their content, every day on social media, that individual, he or she, they're not on it. They may say, hey, well, when something comes up, have them email me at this address, right? Which, people's time is valuable, right?
So it is. And hey, Justin, real, if I can jump in real quick, I think this is an important topic, because this is something that people look at. Some people look at it with a jaundiced eye. Some people, they don't know. They're just trying to figure out. Okay, I see these services. Like you said, you really need to know, what it is you want to do. And you have to certainly look at the money aspect of this. How much money do you want to spend on any of these different, potential services? And I've always looked at it from 2 perspectives. One, if you're going to spend money, do your research, find out, who are these people? What is their track record? What is their performance? So ask to see, well, hey, can you send me some names of people that I can connect with that can tell me what your service has done for them? And it just kind of helps you determine if you're spending your money with the right person, and in addition to whatever that service might be. There are a lot of folks out there that are doing things for free. Now, free doesn't always mean that it's the right answer either, because, maybe the free is not quite on cue, or their metrics aren't the metrics that
I've gotten
really
the free.
need.
I've gotten the free that looked great. I've gotten the free that didn't look so great. I've paid early on, for something. I paid for a resume. It looked great, but I wasn't mentally ready to be able to talk about that resume from the way that professional positioned me. So as soon as it did get me discussions, but as soon as you got on the line with me, you're like, this just doesn't match up. It doesn't, I don't think he wrote this, type of thing. Right. So that was me tripping, falling on my face, and then learning. And it wasn't until a good 2-3 years ago where now I can put together, my abilities to be able to help tailor resumes to specifically focus on jobs that allow veterans to be seen is very, very well calculated, and a very high, conversion ratio, with that respect, because that's what I did at Wells Fargo. I was at talent liaison working for individuals that wanted 6-figure a year plus jobs, right? And I needed to be able to help them articulate their skills properly, to mentally prepare during that journey to be able to talk about their resume, and then being able to, kind of bounce off the trampoline with that right into interviews and ready to crush it. And then in that process, it was understanding what those hiring managers were looking for and wanted to see on those resumes, because it wasn't necessarily about did they use this specific word like project management. And this is just very basic. Maybe they wanted to know the waterfall methodology and how that individual has implemented the waterfall methodology into, basic standards of work, throughout their work week. Or they created a agile type of environment versus, just saying, hey, looking for someone that has project management or agile.
Right.
And again, at that time, we go back to the question at hand was my transition, falling on my face all the way through, being the hard charger, wearing camo, carrying the rucksack, and continuing to drive forward. And I did get several offers, and that was nerve-wracking in itself, because I didn't focus on my what and my why or my how. It was just get a job. I'll go anywhere. Arua.
Yeah,
right?
brute force method,
that's the way,
right?
yeah, that's the way it was, so then, after I transitioned into the second and third time, then it was like, okay, we know where we want to go. We know what we're looking for. I know what I want. I'm willing to accept what I want based on the passions and the needs that you have in your life at that point in time. Because when you start trying to evaluate the different sectors, we'll call them, of your life, like, your free time, your personal time, your gym time, your professional time, learning and development, being able to connect with Christ, all of that type of stuff in the environment that you live in. Early on, most service members don't factor that in. They may look at like, hey, I want to go to Charlotte, North Carolina and work in the banking industry. I'll do anything. And that's like, what I saw a couple of years ago, that was what was, kind of the trend that was happening. And I'm sure now, based on all the great types of learning and curriculum that are out there, and that the great work that the BSOs are doing, right? Service members are more calculated. Military spouses are more calculated in knowing exactly, hey, I want to go to Charlotte, North Carolina, work in the finance industry, be a project manager of a team of 5, make $110,000 a year, work a 50-hour work week type of thing, be off on the weekends, not have to travel, and be part of a bank that values X, Y, and Z in a city that values X, Y, and Z. Then when you talk to a recruiter, it just makes sense. They're like, okay, let's continue the discussions, versus someone that's saying like, oh, I want to be in Minneapolis, but I know I'm interviewing for a job in Charlotte. It doesn't line up. Or you're an HR manager, right? You are an HR manager, and now you're trying to say you're going to be a project manager. So
these are
aligning
all
everything.
Yeah, no, alignment is huge, and in knowing what to align. When you look at the resumes, and this is a very basic statement, but if, as we talked about, a few minutes ago, not knowing what you don't know, if you've never written a resume because your whole time has been in the military, that's a daunting task to make something that you can take what it is you're trying to say, translate out all of the military jargon, and craft it so it's understood in the right terms, in civilian business speak, so that you're saying the right things, and then knowing that,
or industry speak, or company.
Yeah, absolutely. And so then you also have to know that, hey, this resume, you should have a resume that could be 5 pages long. That's your Bible, that's your core document. And that's a foundational document. And then when you're going to go look for a particular job, you pull from that document and you craft your resume to that specific job. It's very specific. A lot of folks, like you were saying, you just send out that one resume, because you don't know any better. You're firing at the cyclic rate, and you're hoping that you're getting steel on target. And a lot of times you might be shooting over the target, but you're shooting so fast you can't see.
Got your goggles on.
It's a bit of an art, art and a science, that whole resume thing. But now, even with social media and with tools like LinkedIn, the whole networking thing, that kind of trumps. I mean, you still have to have a resume, and it still needs to be smart. But the other things, this networking
it allows
piece,
you to be seen.
Developing the relationships, yes, and it gives you that opportunity to where someone wants to talk to you because of what they've seen on social media, and they say, "Hey, send me your resume." well, then you got to be ready to send that resume,
Mhm.
right? But
Yeah, you got to be able to react in 24 hours, right?
yeah. Well, hey, Justin, just for the sure sake of time here, let's.
I told you it could be an hour and 20 minutes, man.
Hey, and that's perfect. Yeah, I've got all day for you, bud. So look, let's do this. So let's wrap up the transition piece, so to speak, by you telling me, knowing what you know now, and we also know that transition isn't just military, right? It continues in life too. So, but knowing what you know now from your transition, if you could do it all over again, what's the one thing that you think you would have done differently?
The most important aspect, and I'm not like staring, but differently, would be relationships, right? Within networking. But
Sure.
the most important aspect is network to build meaningful relationships. Don't network to cast such a wide net that you just may know a lot of people that are like, your relationship is totally face value when you need that person to I was going to use a bad analogy as I was picking up Mike, right? And probably some of our experiences with cattle and whatnot, but I will not go to that one. But I will say, people got to be able to, open doors for you. They got to be able to be willing to go to the hiring manager and have a discussion, be willing to pick up the phone and make a call, be willing to say, we need to talk about this right there with the hiring team to make sure that they fully understand that individual's skills and abilities and qualifications, right? And you're only going to get that through building meaningful relationships. I use some analogies like 97 and 3. 97% of the time, the people that say they're going to do something for you probably aren't going to do it. That's just the reality of it. The other 3% of the time, people like you, Scott, or like Sarah or Mary, right? They're going to get doors open. They're going to go to bat for you. They're going to place the C4 on the wall and make it go boom, right? So you can be seen and be heard. And that's ultimately like fighting through the smoke. Hundreds of people, when I was working at Wells Fargo, applied to one role. Hundreds, 500, 600, 700 people applied to one role. Guess what? They're only going to interview 10 of them. They are. And then from there, who's top tier? It's like, top 2 or 3 gets time with the senior influencers and senior managers of that particular line of business that is hiring. Same thing with a majority of other companies. So it's really important is the meaningful relationships perspective in showing your skills and abilities by helping that individual over time, because it takes time to be able to build that trust and credibility so they will go to bat for you. So again, build meaningful relationships and be the individual that is going to go to bat for another person.
Yeah, that's perfect. And there's a trend here with folks that I'm interviewing. There's a trend with really smart folks who did a lot of great things in the military or in their civilian capacity. And what I'm saying is I'm agreeing with you about the relationship aspect. When I was at Command and Staff College as a student back in 2004, 2005, we had a lot of heavy hitters come in. A lot of 4-star generals from the different services, Antonin Scalia, Supreme Court Justice, folks of industry, CEOs, they come in.
Yeah.
And now I don't know whether they got the brief in advance saying, hey, talk about relationships, which I doubt, but all of them to a person hit on that. It's about relationships. It's about building those relationships and the trust that comes with that. If you look at, let's say, Sandra Day O'Connor and then Antonin Scalia, they were on different ends of the spectrum politically, maybe, right? But guess what? They came to the middle. They were friends. They had a relationship. They built a relationship over those years, and they were still able to get things done because of those relationships and doing the right things. It's kind of a side story here, but yeah, amen. Relationships are paramount. So, well, let's move to your doing your transition thing And, when you look at your LinkedIn profile, you can see that you've had that steady progression upward and onward in the jobs that you have, the ones that you've found your way into, you've been successful, you've done what you've done. Is there any certain thing, looking back on this, the jobs that you landed, was there any one thing that you think you did that helped you land that job?
Relationships.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I mean,
that's easy.
that's as succinct and simple as possible. The second and third order of effects are knowing the organization and building networks within that particular organization, right? And I mean, you never know when you're going to move to one organization or another. I mean, I'm sure you can agree that like our goals as individuals, they're constantly changing, right? We have different needs, and they could be at face value like, oh yeah, I want to be a VP of this, that, or the other. I want to build my own company. Or it may be like, I want to serve others. I want to be able to impact hundreds of thousands of military families in some way, shape, or form, in a way that is like extremely impactful, right? So being able to see it from a couple different lenses as I've transitioned, one lens being able to work for an employer, right, that supports the military community, where my position was to be able to shape those campaigns that Fortune 500, 1,000, 2,000 companies were planning, because they wanted to attract our military community specifically to employment, education, or entrepreneurship through marketing, various forms of marketing needs, right? And so helping those specific organizations build the right type of message to communicate visually, conceptually, right? Either in a I heard it or I saw it type of perspective. That was really enlightening to see those military-friendly companies and veteran-friendly companies that wanted to bring veterans onto their team. And then from that perspective, what many don't know is there's grading tools, right? When you think about different surveys that assess organizations, veteran or military programs, which, seeing it from the inside, we're not just saying, hey, I answered 10 questions and I'm good to go. Like, I was able to see it from the perspective of, I answered 500 questions. That assessment took me 23 hours to complete. It was the most intense rating scheme that I've ever seen. And then seeing what companies are doing from I see the report. Wow. That's really awesome. And for those of you that are watching, if you've earned those prestigious awards, right, that's something to be extremely proud of. So that was fun. And then what I noticed in that, as I was helping those companies attract, right, I saw the break in communication at ground level with the troops, right? And what that was is, they weren't prepared. They didn't know how to talk about their skills and abilities or do their resumes. So then I'm like, well, this just makes sense. I need to be in a position where I can help them do that. And I did that. And that was insanely fun. And, you only have so many hours a day you can help people in that capacity, because for the most part it's one-on-one. So if I'm going to have 70 calls a week, right, to be able to help veterans, military spouses, service members, etc., there's only so many people you help. And helping our community with hundreds of jobs within not only Wells Fargo, but across the landscape over the period of the last 5 years, thousands of jobs by way of mentorship and just helping our brothers and sisters out. I mean, that in itself is like, wow, especially when a Marine veteran is homeless and living under a bridge in Minneapolis during the fires, right? And then lands a customer service job at $18, $20 an hour, and he's just ecstatic. To when the floods happen in Texas and you have a family that then lost his job and sleeping on the streets, and helping that individual to become a complaint specialist at a company at Wells Fargo, and just hearing him cry on the phone, nothing beats that. I mean,
Right.
yeah, there was people that, they got, 100, 200, 300, $400,000 a year jobs, and that's great, right? Hopefully you're going to use that, make a difference within your community, build something great where others can prosper, take care of your family, build a legacy, all of that type of stuff, right? But it's just different types of like impact that you have in the community. And then during that, I was just like, I would love to be able to do this at an organizational level, right? To be able to align organizations' mission and vision, right, within the audiences that they serve, the members that they have, to be able to provide something that the military family needs, right? And being able to provide financial protection, life insurance, wealth management, mortgages, right? From the AFMA perspective is second to none, right? To be able to help thousands upon thousands of military families and program managers of those programs within those organizations, like Team Red, White, and Blue, or like Military Spouse Chamber of Commerce, right? Or Association of the United States Navy, or Higher Military, or Vets to Industry. And there are many others.
Those are all great
really awesome,
organizations you're talking about. Yeah. And, for those that may not know, these last couple things that Justin was mentioning, he's currently the vice president of business development and strategic partnerships with AFMA. And so who better than to give you some insight and some advice and smart words here than him, because of his experience. And you notice that he quickly said that one thing again was relationships, because and that's important. We got to keep hammering that home, and you become better at this as you do it, but you got to do it. You got to put yourself out there. And, if you have questions, I'm sure, Justin is absolutely willing to chat with you about that. If, you are wondering, well, how can I up my game? And so other folks on this call are probably, able and willing to share their time with folks too. So, well, you did talk about some things that will lead to this next part of discussion, building something that is meaningful, something that gives back to communities, something that gives back to people who served or are serving, folks who have a belief in this country, in the Constitution, people that have faith, people that are, Americans, right? We're all here together, and something that you do, that you've built, I think it's a tremendous thing. And that thing is, you're an entrepreneur and you have a business called Proper Patriot. I'm sporting, like we said before we started recording.
That. Looks beautiful on you, man.
It's my favorite. Yes, my favorite tee. I've got a couple more. Yeah. But tell us about Proper Patriot. I think I understand why you did it, but give us a little bit of backstory. What's the mission of your organization? And also, we want to talk about your second annual fishing retreat that you have coming up next month over the Veterans Day holiday period. That's a big deal. So let's start out with your backstory on that, mission statement, and then we'll roll into that last part about the retreat. Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. I always call Proper Patriots my night job, right? Where I'm burning midnight oil, right? But my day job at AFMA, love it, and then I just continue to tinker away. Marketing is something that I love, being able to, build those relationships with the community, establish a tribe. And that really kind of happened early on in my military career. I had several businesses, over the period of time, and I would sell one here or there, or one failed, right? And it's just constantly a learning game. You're trying to figure out, what potion, what solution, what algorithm is going to work for whatever. And it just happened to be like, I found the right way to get what I wanted out of Proper Patriot. Okay.
Yeah, hey, Justin, keep that thought real quick, because I'm interrupting because you said something that I think is so key for entrepreneurs or just people in general. You heard him say failed.
Yeah.
And you didn't hear him say, I packed my stuff and went home. He went right into saying what he was doing beyond that failure. He was back in the fight. So sorry to interrupt, but I thought that's so key.
So when I think back of, I mean, I have that inner patriotic spirit, of just constantly serving, every formation, saluting the flag, all of that type of stuff. And, when you think back of, how our country, what our country has became since 2001, at that point in time, we watched this canyon divide that happened across our nation as our nation went to war. And, that has happened and kind of been in place over the last, 20 years. And so throughout that journey, like I still had my patriotic self and roaring and, very red, white, and blue, very, I love the American flag and the great outdoors and being able to serve our military community, our first responders, our law enforcement. I was always just, how can I provide them hope and some sort of spirit? And ultimately I came with that mission of like, my mission is to honor the American spirit. And that's, the rallying cry of Proper Patriot, right? And doing so in the nature of providing positivity, to our military community, our first responders, our law enforcement, and our patriots. And one way that I'm able to do that, is through apparel, right? Because, it helps shout and broadcast our love for the United States of America and who we are. And then furthermore, like the Proper Patriot annual fishing retreat, I love the great outdoors. I love, locking into a nice, good sized trout. I love bass fishing. I love hunting, all of that type of stuff.
Yeah, I miss not seeing some of those videos. You're busy, but I like those videos.
Yeah, I love, and the videos too. And this is an opportunity, this will be the second year. Last year we did the fishing retreat. There was 60 people there in total, right? So 40 veterans, or a combination of veterans and law enforcement and first responders. And then there was their family, right? So there was 60 people I fed. We did a whole day's a retreat of fishing, right? And then, during that, just being able to experience that camaraderie again, that love that was happening, to hear the stories that were being told, to be able to see wounded warriors reconnecting with their kindred spirit, to see the laughs on their face, to know that they forgot about what they were enduring that day. And the same thing with law enforcement officers, right? And it just really inspired me. And then I'm like, you know what? I want to do this again. So I take as much of my profits as I can throughout the year, what I do have, and I reinvest it back into my annual fishing retreat, right? And so this year, during last year's event, there were several people that are like, man, we would love to be, roasting some marshmallows, sitting around a crackling fire. And I'm like, maybe, I'm going to think about this. I'm going to think if it's possible. And at the time that it happened, it was raining that day. I mean, as well as I, most Veterans Days, for some apparent reason, it's always raining. Right. So on that day, I heard it, but I was like, I don't know about that. But you fast forward 6 months later, earlier this year, and, I'm like, you know what, I'm going to at least try it once. If I fail, I fail. However, I want to bring people together to enjoy themselves, to get away from the hustle and bustle of the city or of their life, right? To put them in an environment where they can connect with their families, connect with their kids, to hear a child say to their father, this is the best time I've ever had with you, Dad. That in itself, I'm like, man, this is an event that I'm creating, right? And I'm just trying to be able to create an atmosphere where people can thrive and enjoy themselves and reconnect. So this year's event, November 11th and 12th, is going to be in Star Tannery, Virginia, at the Double Spur Outfitters, which from DC, it's probably 2 hours. But, from most other areas around, Maryland or Pennsylvania and whatnot, if you're in those states too as well, you're probably within a 2-hour drive. We're going to have at least 100 anglers there, probably 140 people in total at the event, right? To be able to fish and play some outdoor games and connect. We're going to have several speakers out there to showcase their story, as well as some companies that have sponsored the event. And thank you so much to our sponsors. And after this podcast, I'll note those sponsors in the comments below. But I want to make sure that I highlight everyone that did take the opportunity to sponsor it.
And we're gonna have. Hey, Justin, real quick, while you're on that line, I do want to offer this as well. Once we're done with the interview, if you can on LinkedIn DM me anything that you want me to post, because what I'll do when we're done with this is this will go to YouTube, and then I'll go in and cut out a segment of maybe 2 to 3 minutes video, and I'll pretty it up. And not that it needs to be right, but I'll do a couple things to it to get folks to look at it. And then that'll link them to the full YouTube interview. So websites, dates, things like that, folks who are sponsors, I'll add all that in so folks can see that. So I didn't want to forget to mention that. So
no worries. And I appreciate that. So if there are anyone out there that's kind of curious about, hey, how could I be a sponsor, whether it's just you being an individual sponsor, or maybe you're a company and you want to be able to support this mission, right, with use of your, operational dollars, is going to go directly to supporting the event, as well as some marketing efforts where we can help provide brand awareness for your organization. Feel free to reach out. You can send me an email at justin.pearson@properpatriot.com, and I'll answer any questions, or drop me a message in any of the social media platforms. I'll get those questions answered for you. But I'm really excited and pumped up, Scott, about this event that's coming up in the next 2 weeks, to be able to see our community here in Northern Virginia. And, as a matter of fact, there's organizations that are flying their veterans from Texas all the way here to Virginia for the
That's
event.
Fantastic.
Their employee resource group, their veteran resource group, they did, they did a raffle, right, to all of their veterans. And there was 2 veterans out of the group that, they won the raffle, and, now they get an all expense paid trip, from Texas up here to Virginia, so they can experience the Proper Patriot Fishing Retreat. So it's going to be overnight, crackling fires, roasting marshmallows, telling war stories, that type of, veteran thing. So if you are interested, I've done many posts in the past a few days with the registration link. Feel free to jump right into that Eventbrite registration link, right? Get signed up as soon as possible. I think there's probably only about 15 to 20 spots left. So I would love to have
Wow, they're going quick.
Yeah, you and your family. There. Yeah. And so, your wife, your husband, your kids, hey, just sign up. Y'all will come, no cost to you whatsoever. So appreciate you allowing me the opportunity to talk about the Proper Patriot retreat too, Scott.
No, certainly. It's, there's goodness all around. And a couple things real quick, getting to this retreat, right? There's a lot of folks that have probably never really been connected with nature, folks like us that's, we grew up that way. It's kind of hard not to be out in nature when you're in the military, right? Sometimes there's a suck involved with that, but when you're doing it on your own time, it's very different. And there's something so primal about connecting with nature, something so human, something that crackling fire you alluded to a couple of times, sitting there watching the flames, hearing the popping noise, smelling the smell of, whatever type of log you got burning there. And then, that feeling, just opening up to people, there's a healing there. Nature heals, time with people heals. And so many of us need healing. Some of us don't even know we need it. And these are events that absolutely can trigger such positive things. That thing you talked about, that kid, that little guy or gal that's like, hey, Dad, oh my gosh, this was the best ever. Can we do it again next year? But just,
come on, bring it on.
And hearing stories from others, because stories are so important. We learn from stories. Stories provide context. You understand more through hearing someone's background and story. And again, that's what this podcast is about. That's what Sarah Carell and the Power of Our Story is. So naturally, Justin, this was an absolute fit, bringing you in to talk about you as the person, to talk about you as the Army veteran that served for 20 years successfully, a person that had a mission beyond the mission of service. And that service continues to not only folks that are in the military, but first responders, law enforcement officers, firefighters, and, people that are, God-loving Americans. I mean, even if you don't have a relationship with God, that doesn't mean that you're not a good person. It doesn't mean that you don't have a life that's of value. Things change over time, and people, we develop ourselves over time, spiritually, mentally, physically. Those are all important things. And I'm so thankful that you had the time to come on here, because I think this was a mutual win-win. That third win is for the folks in the audience here that got to hear your perspective, your story, and then the good things that you continue to do for all the folks that are out there on the receiving end of this. So now with that, I'm looking at my watch here. We're about 12 minutes after. So I know I saw Sarah had to go. She had another event that she had to kind of prep for, a live event. So she's moved on. So I'm going to take a quick look. It looks like we've got, let me see here. Now I'm doing this with my phone. That's a whole nother issue, but looks like we still have a couple folks on.
Yeah.
So of the people that we currently have on, we have Paul, we have Mary, and Tony. Do either of you folks have a question or any comments? If so, unmute and let's do it.
Yeah.
Hey, Justin, Paul, how are you?
Hey, good, man. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. I just want to tell you, first of all, thank you for what you're doing out in nature with veterans and first responders from both communities here in the Midwest region.
Mhm.
Scott is so right. There's something so healing about that. And while what you're doing is very new to us, I can tell you that we can certainly encourage those in our network to consider what you're doing and get out there. And there's just something about the water, the conversations, the fire, all that stuff. So I just want to encourage you in your team. I was just looking on LinkedIn and connect with you. We'll be happy to open up our network to you as you serve. And I think you really, it's kind of a comment within some of the comments that both of you and Scott made is it's the credibility of the connections. I think both of you were just saying that again.
Mm-hmm.
In the veteran community, especially first responder community, a lot of times you get one chance. And I appreciate the credibility of what you're doing. And that means over the long term, you're going to continue to have an influence that's going to grow because people are going to trust you. And that trust is worth everything. So thank you for what you're doing and for the healing you're bringing in our community. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Paul. Your words are an inspiration. It's something, that's the path that I have to, walk down. And, I have my left and right limits, and it's all within the space of helping be an asset to those that serve, and over time, getting to meet great people such as yourself is a great opportunity for us to connect, learn more about each other, and see how our organizations and personally how we can support each other. So thanks, Paul.
And I'd welcome to talk offline too about how we can help promote your organizations for our summits and make that available to our alumni too, so they can be aware of your services there and just network you out even farther. So thank you so much for being on today. I appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, Paul, tremendous. Paul joined yesterday's conversation too. For those that do or don't know, Thursday is my, drumbeat time. I'm on every Thursday, 11 a.m. Pacific. Today's a special event here today with Justin, but Paul had great comments at the closeout of that show as well. And Paul, thank you for connecting with me yesterday on LinkedIn. I appreciate the fact that you're here today, and relationships and connecting, because the other thing that's important about this is because things that are happening, these people that I'm bringing on are good folks. They're vetted folks beyond being veterans, but they're, I want to make sure I'm bringing in the right folks. And it's important that when we see each other and we hear each other, if there's a feeling there that, hey, I may be able to connect this person with something that's going to expand their reach, or that's going to allow them to, do more good things down their swim lane, then that's another reason why we're doing this, because it allows folks to come on and talk about those things. It allows folks to hear those things and then make those connections afterwards. And then hopefully there's this more goodness spread. So yeah, thanks, Paul. Appreciate that. Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, I think.
Don't be shy.
Justin, Scott, it's Mary Kate. Thank you so much, Justin, for being on here. Sorry I don't have my camera on today. I'm on the road, but I really didn't want to miss this. Thank you, Scott, for doing this every weekend. Justin, great things that you're doing, man. Thank you for helping me with my advice to the interview that helped me land with the Project Management Institute. Great advice. And I see you rocking it out there. And you brought up some great points today, especially about how LinkedIn has just changed so much in the last 5 years. And I think even the narrative to support of veterans and specifically military veteran spouses in the last 2 years as well. And I think it's important for employers and hiring managers. I just want to get your thoughts real quick on kind of the message that we can let them know about the benefits of hiring and really connecting, the value of connecting with veterans and their families for different opportunities. Because I'm coming across a lot of Cold War veterans, even Vietnam veterans. They still kind of get that sentiment that they're forgotten about and that's lost the sense of community. But I think there's a big push to post 9/11 veterans. But again, I think this fishing trip, you know, you're including everybody, and I think that's fantastic, and it's really helping to bring people together and change that narrative. So just your thoughts on how we can do a better job with that and the message we can give employers and recruiters.
Yeah, Mary Kate, hey, thank you so much. I'm really, really thrilled that you landed such a prestigious position with PMI. And I do hope your presentation that you gave to the executives there, was awesome. I'm not sure if you're driving back from that presentation, but I hope you crushed it.
I am. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's
I
awesome.
always try to be in the mix of what's happening in our veteran world. Every day we're constantly having communications and like being a real person and being a person that cares and like keeps up, with people. I think that's really important. The last thing that I want to happen is, people talking at me and then, I don't have enough time to talk with them. And I know I haven't had the opportunity since our discussion, with Bruce, where we did that mentorship call in preparation for your interview, but I'm really thrilled about all of your accomplishments thus far. So I think I can embody everything. Your questions, like it's all about educating the force, right? On one hand, you have our veterans that are, Gulf War, they're Vietnam, they're older than the post 9/11, and some of them even early. Like I'm starting to get old. I'll just be real about it. We have to educate them as we're digital entrepreneurs, and in itself. So we know and understand what LinkedIn is and what the power of LinkedIn is, or what platform to invest time in. Based on whatever type of career you're looking to get, or if you're trying to sell something, it might not specifically be LinkedIn, but it could. But taking the time, right, and educate them. When we were in the military, we, had training Fridays, or we had our sergeant's time, right, or we had our monthly company training. And as leaders, that's what we did. We were the ones that knew our force, right, and we knew, hey, we gotta create training and get them skilled and educated in this position, in this area or that area. So taking that initiative, right. It goes a little bit deeper than just saying, hey, I'm going to develop training for these people, because where are you going to find those individuals? Well, I'll tell you, majority of them are probably at your American Legions and VFWs and auxiliaries, right? And as a matter of fact, just a couple of days ago, I was talking with our American Legion and VFW commander here in Front Royal, right? Because he does the duties of both, because there's just not a lot of people that are raising their hand to be a leader, right? But sending, I had that conversation with them. Hey, I want all of your people, to come out and break bread with us, right? Come out and, play some croquet, some badminton, toss some bags, something, so we can bring spirit into the organization. But we, as the post 9/11 veterans, right, we have to stand up and say, we must continue to serve, right? And that has to happen by investing time in our community to be able to provide them this type of training. But furthermore, right, for us, it allows us to still be connected to a team, to still have some sort of structure, to be able to find relatability and camaraderie with others that have served in the military. Because man, nothing beats a conversation over a cold beer around a fire about someone that served. And trust me, there's individuals that haven't been able to share that story for 10, 20, 30 years, and they're just waiting, right? So when you allow them to, open up and talk about their story, man, you just made their world, you made their year, right? So it takes us to be out in the community. We're holding the world on our shoulders. I'm asking you and those that are watching, take time, get in your community. That's something even I have to do as one of those goals, where I have to say, you know what, that's what I need to do too, Justin, right? And hold myself accountable to be able to work in some capacity where I can serve, right? And if it is, hey, I went and I did a discussion face-to-face with them, and then eventually now we're on Zoom calls, okay, so be it. But let's get out in the community and start building that tribe with our Gulf War veterans and our Vietnam veterans and the other veterans that served, later than that, or earlier than that, excuse me. From kind of that same tone, like now we're in corporate America, and recruiters are constantly changing, right? It just is what it is, right? And everyone's knowledge level of what traits and skills and abilities that a veteran brings is ever so changing, right? And no one's ever going to know everything. There's so much to learn. And what I'm trying to get at here is, we have, as leaders in corporate America, we have to take time, right, to be able to establish specific training curriculum, just like we did in the military, right, to be able to share the value of a veteran, right? We have to take it upon ourselves to train our fellow managers, our peers, our superiors, even those employees that are just on the team and they're at an operational level, so they get a deeper understanding. Now, they're not going to know and understand everything about the military. However, they should be able to know and realize, I know the veteran has this experience. How do I ask the right types of questions that are going to draw that out, right? So that's
a great point.
That's a great thing that we need to be able to do, is help them understand how to draw those questions. Furthermore, when we think about hiring panels, right, or any type of group training within that organization, having veterans that are on those panels, those interviews and in those discussions can help create more relatability for the entire group that is interviewing the individual, so they can have a better holistic understanding of the skills he or she brings to the table. So it's up to you as a veteran to force yourself in a situation as an influencer of the hiring process in order to help that veteran present their best self during the interview. Does that answer your question, Mary Kate?
100%. Thank you, brother, for all the work that you're doing. It's fantastic, and keep on connecting everyone, because I really do think you're making impacts in ways of changing the narrative for all veterans out there. And thank you, Scott. This is awesome discussion today. Thank you.
No, Mary Kate, thank you for spending your time with us today. That means a lot, absolutely, as well. And I want to kind of piggyback on this discussion just real quick, because I think Tony wants to talk here. So just briefly, when you look at these other organizations, VSOs or organizations like American Legion, we all hear about, well, yeah, there's smoke-filled rooms where folks are, drinking beer and whatever, and it's kind of stagnant. Times change, and other folks are involved in this transition of organizations. And kind of getting back to what Justin was saying, people are becoming involved. Younger folks are becoming involved, where they have maybe a little better understanding of how to communicate with that younger crowd, through social media and having events that are interesting to recruit these new folks in. And I'll give you one example of somebody who I know personally, who is What's that?
I said, I think I can too. Go ahead. Though.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the gal we're talking about,
Yeah.
God love her. She was a Marine. She got out, got educated, and is doing great things in her own life, but she's giving back. And she is the commander at the American Legion post in New Bern, North Carolina. That's Elizabeth or Liz Hartman. She's doing a lot of stuff. She's like Justin. She's busy as all get out, and she's a beacon, and she's just tremendous. And she is
loves her some football too. Her and her Browns family.
Oh my God, her and the
seeing those
Browns.
videos.
Yeah. And so Liz knows how to communicate. She knows how to connect people. She also knows how to let folks do their job. She doesn't get in the way. She inspires. She's a leader. She brings people together, and folks like her are helping to change the face of these organizations to reach out to these younger, but also have that, what's the best way to say this, old soul, to still be able to connect with these people that are Vietnam veterans or Cold War era or Gulf era veterans. She's a interesting mix of a lot of good people in one body. So if you don't know Liz Hartman, by God, find her on LinkedIn, Elizabeth Hartman, and connect with her and see what she's doing, because you're going to learn something.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well, hey, real quick, do we have, let's see here. I was kind of, Tony, are you still out there? You got something to talk about here, bud?
I am. I just wanted to
Awesome.
Just give a thanks and a closing comment of mine, not really a question, but I think that you when you talked about the failure that really fueled your passion, I think that's a powerful piece as well, because with, like, back in the USREG days, I'm not sure if your recruiting stations did this or not, we would have the new guys call around to try to get that free pizza for lunch or whatever, and it was a win.
Dude, love it, man.
It was a win-win situation, because either you got a free lunch or the guy got to hear no, 100 times. But to be able to say, that 95% of that journey is going to be those failures that are building up to the 1% success or 5% success, whichever, for the extreme guys, of what we see in society or on social media or what's out there on the face or what's really being presented is just that very small piece of success, and so many people can lose that entire journey that they're on because they're so isolated or believe that it's just them, or just get so lost into those no's or that failure, and really don't have either the support system or just the reassurance from those who have succeeded that hey, that's part of the journey, embrace it, love it, let it fuel you, let it be a part of, that's what's going to make it so much more sweet when you finally get to that finish line, and I think that just having that encouragement and just having that representation of letting others know, one, you're not alone. Two, embrace it, enjoy the ride, and the finish line is still yet to come.
Yeah. And it's all right to just, reach out to your network, those that you trust, and say, hey, man, I'm falling on my face. I have no clue what I'm doing wrong. I need your help. Please save a battle buddy here. Throw me a life raft. I literally, if I get that message that comes in, I'll jump on the horn with you at 10 o'clock at night. It's all right to send those messages. For those of you that are watching, reach out, talk to your veteran battle buddies, or even there's civilians, that are military advocates that, they will take those calls too as well. However, just make sure that those that you would reach out to in that capacity, like they should be close friends, right? Because they may see you in some raw form, right? And I've had those discussions, deep discussions in that lane, and it's all right to feel like that, because at some point in time, to some degree, we have felt or may be feeling some of those similar things. So that was a roller coaster in itself, but I totally get you, Tony. Back to you, Scott.
Yeah, no, hey, Tony, that's awesome. Aside from your beard looking so good, that was that was a great comment. Failures in life, we all have them. Depends on how you respond to them, right? Some people fail, and whether they fail hard or whether they just kind of fail, it sets them back, and then it causes their head to spin, and it gives them some new reality that, oh, geez, I don't want to do that again. And then they become gun shy. We can't. We have to know that you got to move forward because success will come, and success looks different for everybody, right? Success to one person might not be what it is for somebody else. But reaching out to people, it's a two-way street. Yeah, there's folks that are willing to reach out, but sometimes if you're good at, hiding your emotion, you may look completely squared away. You may look like things are perfect, but inside you're dying. And at some point you got to realize, hey, I got to reach out, and it's okay to reach out because we've got broad shoulders. We lock hands, we lock arms, and there's this force, and that's what these tribes are all about. And these people that care for each other. It's so important to realize that, reach out, and that takes you into that next level of life because you see that you're not alone. And that's a powerful thing. And thanks for your comments and also for being here. I don't know whether you know this or not, Justin, but Tony is, he's in the Power of Our Story umbrella as well. And he does a lot of great stuff. And he's been connected with Sarah Carell for quite some time. He's a mover and a shaker. He's a quiet guy, but when he said something, it's like E.F. Hutton. You want to have your ear close and hear what he has to say because it's always very meaningful. So thanks for that. I appreciate that.
Awesome.
So, okay. Well, I think we are at an hour and 33 minutes. Holy smokes. I knew it would go quickly, and as did you. I want to thank everyone that spent time today tuning in. As is normal, we will, as I said, this records to the cloud. We will post this to YouTube under the Power of Our Story, Sarah Carell. And then I'll also advertise it on LinkedIn, so it'll draw folks to the entire interview. That'll happen in a couple of days. Justin, I want to thank you for your service. I want to thank you again for your continued service to folks. You are making a lot of good things happen for people, for organizations. We are learning from folks like you. People need to know that there are resources and there are folks like you tied to those resources on the other side. Thank you for your time. Have a great weekend. Enjoy Halloween this weekend, and have a blast on this fishing trip. If I was on the East Coast, I would be right there with you. So
that'd be amazing.
Yeah, you guys have fun, and we'll talk again soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Scott, and we'll talk soon, Tony. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, guys.